What's up everyone, my name is Joshua Rzepka, and today's video is the third video in a 15-part series where I speak with 17 world-class trumpeters. In each video I'll present a question, and then you'll hear that question answered in sequence by everyone. The trumpeters I spoke with are as follows: Karin Bliznik, Randy Brecker, Chris Coletti, Pacho Flores, Tine Helseth, Roger Ingram, Ingrid Jensen, Tage Larsen, Lynch, Selina Ott, Kenny Rampton, Michael Sachs, Arturo Sandoval, Sibaja, Bria Skonberg, Lessie Vonner, and Bijon Watson. Now, anyone who has ever played the trumpet knows that from time to time you might overdo it. Perhaps you practiced a bit longer than normal, had a really demanding gig, or you're just in the middle of a busy week of shows. Whatever the case may be, it's not a place that anyone likes being. We want our chops to feel good, so it's essential to have a strategy to get our chops to feel better in those situations. And that is why the third question I asked all of my guests was, how do you recover after a hard gig? Now, I've got to say, I was pretty surprised by some of their answers. If you've been enjoying this series, make sure that you subscribe and hit that bell so that you're notified when the next video comes out. Now, this video isn't as long as the first two, but it's still on the longer side. So relax and get in a comfy spot. As always, I've broken this video into chapters so that you can easily find and jump to any answer. With all that being said, let's hear what everyone had to say.
To recover after a hard day's work on the trumpet, I will actually use Robinson's Remedies. Put it on the chops, helps bring the swelling down. And I will flutter. A lot of people like to warm down. I've tried that when I was younger. Never really did much for me. And like conceptually, the idea of warming down is really just to get the blood moving through the chops. So to me, just fluttering my chops, and even more than just the chops, fluttering your face, like getting one cheek at a time, like really getting all the muscles. It's like a massage to me. And kind of warming down is essentially to me the same thing, only it's a little more controlled. But to me that doesn't need to be controlled. I like to just get the blood flowing and bring the swelling down. That's where Robinson's Remedies comes into play. The lip renew. I put a little bit of that on my chops, brings the swelling down, and if it's really bad, if I've had a really rough day, I'll get a glass of ice water, and hold the water up on my face so the ice is touching my chops for 15 seconds, hold it like that, or you take a piece of ice out and do that, on a real bad day. But that's about it. That and just good, nice rest, and usually good to go the next morning.
Definitely rest and rehydration are the most important things for recovering after a hard gig, after a hard day, after anything. Your body needs to recharge. So drink a full liter of water, get some coconut water. It's actually extra hydrating. And again, even if you only have 10 minutes, take a power nap or get a good night's sleep, and that will allow everything to just reset.
Yeah, so recovering after a hard gig, like playing a Shostakovich symphony, for me, some of the most helpful things to do are nice soft long tones immediately. Like once the performance is over, just go down to the practice rooms and do maybe 10, 15 minutes with just soft long tones, soft articulation, some pedal tones, just to sort of get everything back and get you set up for the next day.
And that makes me think about a couple of things. Recover mentally. My intention has always been to work. That's all I've ever wanted to do, which means I'll take any gig if it's not too onerous of a task. For the time spent in the car getting to the gig, and the time spent on the gig, and the time spent in the car getting home from the gig, and depending on the quality of the music being played, if the price is right, I'll take a gig. You'll see me on anything. And sometimes after I get home, I have to recover mentally from what I just did for 4 hours. In that regard, I'll have maybe a moment of silence, and meaning maybe an hour of just silence. And then, to kind of make myself feel better about being a musician, and you know, for what I just did for money, maybe I'll like put on a beautiful classic jazz album, like, you know, Kind of Blue. Or I'll listen to Johnny Hartman with John Coltrane. You know, that's after like doing some kind of a gig where I'm playing hot, hot, hot in conga. You know? And I get home and I'm like, yeah, I think maybe I'll listen to Tom Harrell or just something, you know, a little bit, just kind of make myself feel better. So as far as recovering from a gig mentally, what that does is it enables me to go out and do that kind of a gig again, because I know that I can recover when I get home. I'm like, okay, thank you, Clifford Brown, for bringing me back, you know. As far as physically, I've woken up the next morning a little puffy, maybe a little puffy. I might take an ibuprofen or something, and I can usually tell if I've really like kind of pushed it and that I'm going to be puffy tomorrow. The first step of the warm up is also my warm down. So in the car on the way home from the gig, immediately I know it's like, yeah, I'm driving along. I'll count to 10. So it'd be like, let a little bit of healing start, you know. And when I come to a stoplight, I have a chance to put my hands, you know, massage it a little bit, you know. And then when I get home, I'll make sure I drink plenty of water and I have something to eat, rehydrate myself a little bit, stretch a little bit. It's basically the first steps of the warm up. That's what my warm down is. And I can do it in the car. And 9 times out of 10, I'm just fine the next morning. And, you know, when you get on a gig where you can't hear very well, the thing Bobby Shue used to say all the time, when your chops feel bad, back off. And when your chops feel great, back off. I know what playing at 60 or 70% feels like, even if I'm in an environment where I can't hear myself. I know what it feels like to play 50, 60, or 70%. And I just keep everything medium. And the upper register comes out easier when everything is just at medium. You know, you just don't try to force anything and just play the gig and keep everything medium and keep the mic about that far from your bell, you know, so you get a nice sound on it. And so one of the things I do to prevent me from being hurt is I don't play too loud on the gig, you know.
I think if you're really, really tired, first of all, what I always do, no matter if it's been really hard or whatever, I always warm down. I don't know why we call it warm down because, yeah, I have no idea. But anyway, that's what we call it. And I focus on that, right? Really doing it right, feeling that I play a lot of pedal tones, pedal notes. I really focus on trying to feel the kind of blood coming back to your lips, feeling that you're like fresh, even though you're tired. And the more tired I am, the more I do, so that I think it's also here a lot, but still that feels nice to do that. And then I feel that the next day when I start practicing or playing again, it's easier than if I've done a good warm down. If you're extremely tired and you can, then just take the next day off. Don't force it, you know, like if we force it too much, I tell this to students as well, if you're just like dead tired, or if you get too tired every day when you practice, then you're doing something wrong. We need to build always and not just tear down and destroy. So sometimes, you know, it's like an athlete. Sometimes they just need to lay on the sofa for a day. It's important with the restitution part of it.
Directly after a hard concert, for example, I try to cool down. So I practice a bit, not much, but just enough to that the lips feel better afterwards, because if I play nothing, it will not sound good the next day. So I try to repair it a bit, and then I just try to relax my mind also, because I think that's actually more important than the lips, because you have to be free in the head and the mindset in order to play the music as you like. And for me, relaxing and my balance to trumpet playing are my two horses. And of course, when I play concert, I'm mostly in a different country and far away from my horses. But when I come back, then I try to relax and, you know, get my energy back and the motivation and everything.
Three, 4, 5 minutes cooling down is enough for me. Cooling down with pedal notes and opening fingering to be relaxed, like one massage. I change depending of the days, but the base is the same always. Is try to go to long tones, but very in the pedal notes.
Definitely pedal tones, like get in the low and just like sit there. Sometimes I'll just like, when I get home or like back to the hotel or whatever, I'll put on some TV, like some Family Guy, and just sit there playing long, like low tones, just until there's not like a set number I do or a set time that I do. It's just whenever like that, it feels like everything's loosening up. And then other than that, just like not touch the horn, just like rest and until, you know, the chops feel better.
I think for me, recovery after a hard gig is just getting up in the morning and seeing where you're at and working your way to where, you know, things are. Again, it goes back to the value of consistent and conscious maintenance, and you know, the goal for that should be always that no matter what happened the night before, or no matter how you're feeling when you get up in the morning, you can get within 95% of your best, or of what you feel is optimal. Maybe a little bit of warm down after something, if something was was very strenuous, but usually just looking forward to the next session, you know, the next morning. I enjoy warming up. I enjoy going through my routine. You know, I've missed very few days in my life, so it's sort of my spiritual practice.
Oh, I go to bed and sleep. Yeah, sometimes I do like a soft kind of things after the long gig or something, just to loosen up, to do some low nose and soft and some clear, very soft thing for a few minutes. But not in every gig, you know. I'm a little lazy for that. That's not. I don't have that kind of strong discipline anymore. But it's convenient to do it. I really recognize that. Sometimes I do the Maggio warm up, but very soft, just to reach the low C, but with your normal and regular position, not buzzing, just real sound, which is a big difference. A lot of people are confused about that, and when they play those, they call pedal. I hate that. I call low notes. When they play those low notes, they buzzing into the mouthpiece. Like they create a noise instead of a real sound. And the result of that kind of practicing is not that kind of productive, you know. You have to force your machine to play those notes with your normal embouchure and thinking about those notes belongs to the horn. They're not something extra or something like on the side. They're part of the horn. Something like that. Let me play you a couple of notes and then you get what I'm talking about. That's not what I mean. It's a part of the whole thing. It's not like something that you use a false position to create those noise that don't give you any good results at the end. And some people misunderstood the importance of playing those notes correctly because they believe that thing messed their embouchure or something. It's no reason. No. If that makes your embouchure, that means you were playing those notes with the incorrect embouchure. And that, of course, that doesn't help you at all. But trust me, when you really learn to play, especially that low C open with real sound and your normal embouchure, your whole sound all over the horn gonna improve and gonna get like like a cloudy day and suddenly a strong wind blow all the clouds and the sun come out. It's a bright day. Exactly the same effect when you play those notes correctly. And the same talking, some people related that is they say when you play those notes well and then that help you with the high note. That have nothing to do. Those things, those notes play it correctly, help you with everything, especially with the quality of the tone, but it's not related to high note. It have nothing to do.
On a very practical note, like if you feel like stiff, I feel like just really soft fading in type stuff is super helpful. Lori Frank told me to do that. I mean, I was in high school. I don't think I really knew what it felt like to be beat up because you don't really know what it's like to get beat up until you've been old enough to like really get beat up. But oh gosh, what a lifesaver, because it sort of brings everything back together. And without claiming to know too much about the anatomy of how our face works, I mean, when you feel spread out, I mean, I think a lot of the times we're just not hyper in touch with like the smaller nerve endings of our lips, and whether or not they're responding, like physically responding the way they normally do, doesn't really matter so much. We're always adjusting to the anatomy that's constantly changing due to the weather or the air's humidity or whatever. But when you're in touch with those really fine motor skills, you get the response that you want, and then you're in control. And so those type of exercises are always helpful. And I think almost every trumpet player, even those that put a lot of time into that, says that they don't do them enough. And I'm one of them.
I mean, ideally, I don't get into the red. Like this is what I'm really trying to work hard on. And I think the St. Louis Symphony does it well in that they have always had a culture of assistance. That started with Susan Slaughter, like 30, 40 years ago. And I was so lucky to walk into a culture where there is no shame in asking for help when things are a lot on your plate. And whether it is that you're playing multiple programs or the individual program is a lot. We are not machines, right? And so to treat ourselves that way, I think is unfair. At the end of the day at the symphony after a concert, huge concert, I go down to the boiler room, and I'd say there's quite a few other brass players that do this. And you see people just sitting down playing soft music, and it's not just playing quietly. For me, and I think for several of my other colleagues, it's finding where's my sound again. Where is that air meeting that sound? and what is the least amount of force that I can do to get there. At the end of the day, me approaching the instrument almost feels like a new level of lightness on my face. Then I feel like I've done myself well and I can put it down, right? But to find that spot where as soon as the air starts, the sound starts, if that spot is there again, I'll be okay the next day. But I definitely make sure that I take time to do that for myself.
Well, I'm sometimes asked that, and what I try to do 9 times out of 10, because a hard gig means many hours somewhere in a club or a concert hall, sound check, et cetera, one-nighters. If it's really bad, I might warm down a bit, but generally I get out of there as fast as possible and try to get a good night's sleep, take 2 aspirins before I go to bed, just playing long tones in the lower register of the horn, even just starting in middle C down to the low end of the horn, and some lip slurs at the end of the night. If it's really been a brutal night, depending on the sound, I might do that. But mainly it's get a good night's sleep. The 2 aspirins seem to help the swelling. I was doing that for years. You do have to take it easy in the morning, and I might put some lip salve on. That also is not a bad idea.
After a hard gig, hydration is the key. I'm hydrating before, during, but after a gig, I like to hydrate, and not just with beer. That's not really hydrating, but definitely a lot of water. That's really the biggest thing for me. And also moisturize. I use Robinson's Remedy. That's the one I use after that. And I just got into using it about a year and a half ago. I got hip to it from a few people, and I really like the way that makes my chops feel after. So hydration and Robinson's Remedy is really. Now, in terms from a playing standpoint, I do a lot of long tones and mouthpiece buzzing. I find that refreshes me, and usually coming off the bandstand, what I'm doing is a lot of high intensity, high note stuff. So anything to relax the chops and get the blood flowing back in. But hydration is really the biggest thing. I mean, I drink insane amounts of water. So, yeah.
After a hard gig, I try not to play the trumpet much. If I do 2 or 3 minutes of low notes, that's a lot. What I try to do is try to bring the swelling down. I usually try to hang out with a little bit of ice. If I'm drinking something, or you'll always see me with ice behind my lips. And then to me, the most important thing is the next day. How I can recover the next day. I always take it very, very easily. And when it starts to bother me, I stop. That's my only commandment. If it starts bothering me, I stop. It doesn't matter if I feel like there's no end to that day and the world is the limit. I will stop if it starts bothering me even a little bit, because I hear horror stories from a lot of people regarding that.
A couple things that I do. First of all, especially after a particularly strenuous show, I always do a warm down or cool down. And in fact, I do that no matter what. The whole idea for me is that the lip is like any other muscle in the body. If I was an athlete and I was, playing whatever game I was playing, if I was a runner and I was running a mile as fast as I could, would I just stop and that's the end of it? No, I'd cool down. I'd get my muscles loosened up. I want to live to fight another day. Whether I'm playing a Mozart symphony or a Mahler symphony, I always do a cool down, warm down after I play, before I put it away. It's always just, some easy, like violin, kind of low violin stuff, easy, slow lip slurs, a little bit of articulation just to kind of regather things, reframe things, get everything kind of back encased and framed in the right way, get my response back happening correctly, maybe some poo attacks on like low C's, middle G's, nothing too high. And then maybe some pedal tones, some double pedals as, real easy, just just get everything just nice and flowy and just get myself back recentered. Then I put it away. And, I do that at the end of every session that I do, every practice session, every rehearsal, every concert that I do. If it's something a little bit more strenuous, if that's the orientation, then I'll maybe do a little bit more of an extended warm down. But where I got this, I'm a big baseball fan. And one of the guys I love to go watch play, both when I was growing up in LA and then when I was in Houston, he was on the Houston Astros, was watching Nolan Ryan pitch. And here's a guy that was just really incredibly physical with the way he pitched, but it was so efficient. And I used to go when I was in Houston, and I would go sit down the first base line, and I get there early to watch him warm up. And it was the same thing. I mean, he started out with like a certain amount of pitches, just like easy toss, just not too far from the catcher. Then they get wider and wider and wider. Eventually you do like kind of a little half wind up, a little bit more. Then he's on a mound, the catcher's squatting. He's doing more of a wind up, more of a full wind up, and it's getting faster and faster and faster. Until finally you could watch him, and it was all coming from his core and his torso. It wasn't coming from his arm. So in many ways, the way we align ourselves physically and use our air, it's the same kind of thing. I'm not making my lip do all the work. The air's doing all the work. And then by the time he's done warming up, it's like, I can never forget the sound, that the sizzle of the ball when it was going 100 miles an hour, and the pop in the catcher's mitt and being that close to it was just, it was stunning. Whether he pitched a no-hitter or he got shelled in the first inning and got one guy out and then got yanked after, giving up 8 runs. He always went and he got on the exercise bike and he cooled down after every time he pitched, and probably iced his arm down or something else like that. But there was always that cool down process. And I remember reading about that. So both his warm up and his cool down, to me, I kind of saw that framework, and it was kind of a light bulb moment for me when I was about 23, 24. And I started kind of playing around with that idea, and I found that it really worked well for me. And especially once I got this job a couple of years later, and I was in a much more acute situation with, my playing and everything I was doing and the schedule I was keeping, it seemed to work really well in keeping me kind of balanced and keeping the equilibrium on my playing. And again, setting me up to live to fight another day and getting it so that more often than not, when I pulled the horn back out, I felt fresh. I didn't feel like, hamburger, or like I was, stiff as a brick. So that was a really big revelation for me, and a giant help in the process of really the last 35 years of my playing.
I don't need to. That sounds very pretentious and very kind of snotty, but I'm snotty today. No, I seriously don't. At this point, I don't ever find myself at the end of a gig where it was hard and I feel like I hurt myself, because I play efficiently now. It's a combination of all these great teachers I've had, and as well as the mental and physical place that I play from. And I do remember times before I had gear that was flowing and a body that was aligned, where I had to do things like, I got to warm down. I really hurt myself. That was hard. The better I play on a gig, the more functional my setup is, and the more clean I approach playing from the first second in the day to the end of the gig. And it's like putting the cup in the dishwasher. See you tomorrow. Might have to clean you a little, but I don't have to fix it. It's not broken.
Wow, my chops are feeling better already. First of all, a very big thanks to all of my guests. As a reminder, this is video 3 in a 15-part series, so make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss the rest of them. I really took a lot away from this video, and it definitely got me thinking about a few new things. My biggest takeaway from this video is that nearly every trumpet player has got their own strategy for getting things centered again. You gotta figure out what works best for you. However, quite a few people mention the same thing over and over again. Hydrate. Get a good night's rest. Play some soft, easy stuff. Maybe some pedal tones. try to get the response back and the blood flowing. But beyond that, I loved how many of the answers referenced consistency with routine and warm-up, and how they look at a balanced routine and a balanced way of playing as a way to keep them from getting overworked to begin with. Also, how great was Roger's take when he referenced the mental recovery? That is something equally important, and it's really just not discussed all that often. Now, you may have also heard a few people give a little shout out to Robinson's Remedies. If you're not hip to it, I've provided a link below. This video is not sponsored, but I am an endorser of this product, along with 4 of the trumpeters that you just heard from. I've been using Robinson's Remedies myself for quite some time now, and it really does help my chops feel fresher during and after practice sessions and gigs. Now, in this video, we heard strategies for recovery, both physically and mentally. I'm definitely inspired to try some new things after my next practice session. Speaking of inspiration, before we get that big gig, before we dive into practice and wear ourselves out, well, first we were all inspired to play. Something clicked, and we decided that music and the trumpet was the way forward. With that idea in mind, in the next video, I asked everyone the following question. What inspired you to become a musician, and when did you first become serious about music? Again, I've already heard all the answers, so I can already say you're not going to want to miss this next video. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, let me know in the comments below. I love hearing from all of you. While you're at it, hit that like button and share this video with a friend. That would really mean a lot to me. I want to thank you for watching, and if you want even more tips for worn out chops, then check out this next video.